non-white hordes that were outnumbering white people around the world. Now tell the jury, if you would, who are these non-white hordes?
This is a fictitious story that I had wrote, and of course it's mentioned in there 1991, and this was put out in 1988, so it's obvious that it was fictitious. And it was just my general feelings of a lot of different things at the time.
It was kind of like the Turner Diaries, wasn't it? It was like a little recipe of how white people could maintain their identity and destroy and kill non-white people.
You're taking that completely out of context like the other charts there. I think the jurors would have a lot, and the court for that matter would have a lot different opinion if we were able to read the whole paper.
Well, the jury will have it in the jury room, and you can ask yourself any questions you want to about it any farther. I'm interested in the parts that go to the core of this case.
Okay.
That these non-white hordes is what I want you to tell this jury. Who are you directing the attention of the reader of this to? Was it Asian Americans? Is that the non-white horde?
I was directing that at quite a few different people, even people within our own movement that I didn't care for.
Let's stop and list those people. Would it be black people?
Non-white hordes obviously are people who are not white, so it would cover anything that is not white.
I don't want to be personal, but there are people that are Jewish who look white to me. Are they part of this non-white horde?
Yes.
What about Spanish people?
I would have to take a look at their ancestry because we don't recognize national boundaries as the racial makeup of that country.
But
there's a lot of white Spaniards.
Pardon me, sir.
There's a lot of white Spaniards.
The point I'm trying to get here is that you've written a material that's educational material for young people to read, for people like Mr. Mazzella to teach from, and you direct the attention to a cesspool. Cesspool, you know what that is, don't you?
Yes.
That's where excrement goes in a hole in the ground. You know that, don't you?
Oh, yes.
And you know that cesspool of non-white hordes, you wrote this, didn't you?
Oh, yes.
Back on the 3rd of December, 1988, before this lawsuit and before any allegations that Mr. Mazzella was your agent or recruiter, you admitted you had a conversation with Walter Hatch, and I'm going to read you his statement. If local skinheads request his help, Metzger said he would send Mazzella or another organizer to Seattle to repeat the success in Portland. Just tell me, yes or no, did you tell Mr. Hatch that? Yes or no?
Your Honor, I object. Is that in quotes?
I don't know if it is or not, Mr. Metzger. Is it in quotes, Mr. Dees?
No, it's just part of the story, Your Honor.
Okay,
He said it. I just want to know, did you tell him that?
Here again, like I stated before, there are no quotes here. John Metzger, the young neo-Nazi who is organizing an all-night vigil, I didn't do that at all.
Excuse me, Mr. Metzger. If you understand the question, counsel's entitled to your answers. Did you make the statement to Mr. Hatch?
I deny it on the grounds that I don't have Walter Hatch's notes, which he refused to bring into court to collaborate this. The reason why I won't answer this is because I've been misquoted and things taken out of context and similar things like this that are important, that are not in quotes, all the time. People are turning them all the way around. I'm not going to feel comfortable saying I said that.
Wasn't the real purpose for you writing Ken Death was to get in with East Side White Pride and War, to get in with them as a group, as a war group?
No, the real reason why I wrote that here again is because I had heard of some of the problems, and I already had met Power in Oklahoma. Of course, Power was from Portland, and I thought it was fair of me to write Eastside White Pride. A lot of times you'd have to say stuff like that to get them encouraged.
Wasn't the reason Mazzella was, whether you admit you sent him or not, the reason you wrote, you'll get a feel for how we work when you meet Dave Mazzella soon, was because you wanted to get in other words, get your war organization in with Eastside White Pride and POWAR. Isn't that correct?
That's not correct. My statement, you'll get a feel of how we work when you meet Dave Mazzella and Mike Gagnon soon, is because Dave was going to Portland. So I said, hey, these guys have similar ideas to ours. So you'll get a feel of how we work, because Dave Mazzella and Mike Gagnon had ideas that were similar to mine on race. I didn't know exactly where Eastside White Pride was coming from.
Was Dave Mazzella vice president of Aryan Youth Movement, or the Youth Division of War, at the time he came to Portland on October the 7th, 1988, and through the time this murder was committed?
Dave Mazzella was vice president